Today is Good Friday, and it is a day that we set aside to remember and to meditate on the crucifixion of Jesus Christ and what it means for us. As we said this last Sunday, Christ died willingly in our place to deliver us from the power and the penalty of sin and to bring us back to God. Well, under normal circumstances, Olive Grove Church would have a worship service. We would come together and celebrate this together. Well, this day is different. This day we are faced with a global pandemic, which is forcing us to worship separately for the love of our neighbors. And it would be easy for us to lose heart during a season like this one. But I wanted to make this video to remind my church family that in the midst of suffering and tragedy and uncertainty, God is still God. In this difficult season, we're all going through various challenges. And as a culture, we're uncertain of the future. We've been locked down into our homes, and we don't know when things are going to get back to normal. Some of us are not working right now, and so we're struggling financially. Some of us have experienced the death of a family member, whether because of this virus or some other reason. And so as a church family, we're experiencing a range of emotions, from uncertainty to grief, to frustration, even fear. And in many ways, we're sort of at the mercy of our circumstances. And so it's normal for us to let our response be dictated by this reality. It's very popular for Christians to say to each other, don't let your joy be rooted in your circumstances. Just have faith. Don't worry about what your eyes can see. Just shut your eyes and try to look at Jesus. And I say that way in order to make it sound absurd, because it is absurd. You can't look at anything with your eyes closed. Instead, I want to invite you to open your eyes and look at your circumstances. Look at them right in the face and tell yourself what is true about your situation. Make a list of things that are true about your current situation, your current circumstances, and not just your immediate circumstances, but your ultimate circumstances. And if you do that, I think what you will find is that your circumstances as a Christian are overwhelmingly positive. Christian joy is absolutely rooted in your circumstances. Keep your eyes open and express your faith in what you have evidence to believe is true. You are a child of God. You are loved and perfectly cared for by the final authority in the universe. You have been given victory over sin and death because of what Jesus has done for you. Open your eyes and look at reality. Fix your eyes on Jesus, the risen Christ, who sits at the right hand of the throne of God, who is your advocate before the Father. Put your trust in him. You're a child of the King. So look intently at your circumstances. Your immediate circumstances, yes, but also your ultimate circumstances, and root your joy in your circumstances. This is what Jesus did when he was on his way to the cross. You see, Jesus knew exactly what he was about to experience, and he went through with it anyway, not because he enjoyed the suffering, but because he had his eyes fixed on his ultimate circumstances. So Hebrews 12 tells us that for the joy that was set before him, he endured the cross. In John 13, Jesus is in the upper room with his disciples, and he's about to take on the position of a servant and wash their feet. And so John records that Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going back to God, rose from supper, laid aside his outer garments, and taking a towel, tied it around his waist. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and wipe them with the towel that was wrapped around him. You see, it was Jesus' full understanding of his ultimate circumstances that provided the determination and the courage to accomplish the task in front of him. How could he humble himself to wash their feet, to wash Judas's feet? How could he humble himself to approach the cross? How could he humble himself to endure such suffering? Well, he knew what his ultimate circumstances truly were. He knew who he was. He knew where he had come from and where he was going. And he knew what he was going to accomplish by his suffering. He knew that his Father's plan was wise and good. And in that knowledge, he endured the cross. On that first Good Friday, Jesus' disciples had very similar feelings to what many of us are currently experiencing. They were on lockdown as well. They were in hiding, scared for their lives. And their entire world was in upheaval, and their future was uncertain. All their hopes had been placed on this Jesus of Nazareth, into his hands. Hands that once seemed so powerful, but were now being nailed to a cross. That Friday evening and the next day, Saturday, the disciples knew exactly what it meant to feel fear, to feel powerless, to be locked away in their homes, not knowing when or if it ever would be safe to go back to a normal life. But God was completely in control. He knew exactly what he was doing. And God was going to use what was intended for evil to accomplish his good purposes. And so no matter what you're going through right now, I want you to open your eyes and focus on what your circumstances actually are. You need to tell yourself the truth about the situation you're in. This is the truth. God is absolutely sovereign over this situation. He's not surprised. He's not nervous. He's not even breaking a sweat. He knows what you're going through right now. And he knows what's coming next. His wisdom is unsurpassable. His power is unshakable. And his heart is good. I'm going to read two passages to you right now. And the first one is the crucifixion narrative from the Gospel according to Matthew. And the second was a prophecy about the crucifixion that was written hundreds of years earlier in Psalm 22. I want you to see just how accurate the prophecy was. See, Jesus' disciples may have felt like the whole situation was out of control, but the truth was, every single detail of Jesus' death went exactly according to God's perfect plan. Matthew 27 through 54. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole battalion before him. And they stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him. And twisting together a crown of thorns, they put it on his head, and put a reed in his right hand, and kneeling before him, they mocked him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they spit on him, and took the reed and struck him on the head. And when they had mocked him, they stripped him of the robe, and put his own clothes on him, and led him away to crucify him. As they went out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by name. They compelled this man to carry his cross. And when they came to a place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull, they offered him wine to drink, mixed with gall. But when he tasted it, he would not drink it. And when they had crucified him, they divided his garments among them by casting lots. They sat down and kept watch over him there. And over his head they put the charge against him, which read, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." Then 2 robbers were crucified with him, one on the right and one on the left. And those who passed by derided him, wagging their heads and saying, "You who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from the cross." So also the chief priests with the scribes and elders mocked him, saying, "He saved others. He cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down now from the cross, and we will believe in him. He trusts in God. Let God deliver him now, if he desires him. For he said, 'I am the Son of God.'" And the robbers who were crucified with him also reviled him in the same way. Now about the 6th hour, there was darkness over all the land until the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour, Jesus cried out with a loud voice, saying, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani," that is, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And some of the bystanders heard it, saying, "This man is calling Elijah." And one of them ran at once and took a sponge and filled it with sour wine and put it on a reed and gave it to him to drink. But the others said, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to save him." And Jesus cried out again with a loud voice and yielded up his spirit. And behold, the curtain of the temple was torn in two, from top to bottom, and the earth shook, and the rocks were split. The tombs also were opened, and many bodies of the saints who had fallen asleep were raised. And coming out of the tombs after his resurrection, they went into the holy city and appeared to many. When the centurion and those who were with him, keeping watch over Jesus, saw the earthquake and what took place, they were filled with awe and said, "Truly, this was the Son of God." Psalm 22. My God, why have you forsaken me? Why are you so far from saving me, from the words of my groaning? Oh my God, I cry by day, but you do not answer, and by night, but I find no rest. Yet you are holy, enthroned on the praises of Israel. In you our fathers trusted. They trusted, and you delivered them. To you they cried and were rescued. In you they trusted and were not put to shame. But I am a worm and not a man, scorned by mankind and despised by the people. All who see me mock me. They make mouths at me. They wag their heads. He trusts in the Lord. Let him deliver him. Let him rescue him, for he delights in him. Yet you are he who took me from the womb. You made me trust in you at my mother's breasts. On you I was cast from my birth, and from my mother's womb you have been my God. Be not far from me, for trouble is near, and there is none to help. Many bulls encompass me. Strong bulls of Bashan surround me. They open wide their mouths at me, like a ravening and roaring lion. I am poured out like water, and all of my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax. It is melted within my breast. My strength is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue sticks to my jaws. You lay me in the dust of death. For dogs encompass me. Company of evildoers encircles me. They have pierced my hands and my feet. I can count all my bones. They stare and gloat over me. They divide my garments among them. For my clothing they cast lots. But you, O Lord, do not be far off. O you my help, come quickly to my aid. Deliver my soul from the sword, my precious life from the power of the dog. Save me from the mouth of the lion. You have rescued me from the horns of wild oxen. I will tell of your name to my brothers. In the midst of the congregation, I will praise you. You who fear the Lord, praise him. All you offspring of Jacob, glorify him and stand in awe of him, all you offspring of Israel. For he has not despised or abhorred the affliction of the afflicted, and he has not hidden his face from him, but he has heard when he cried to him. From you comes my praise in the great congregation. My vows I will perform before those who fear him. The afflicted shall eat and be satisfied. Those who seek him shall praise the Lord. May your hearts live forever. All the ends of the earth shall remember and turn to the Lord. And all the families of the nations shall worship before you. For kingship belongs to the Lord, and he rules over the nations. All the prosperous of the earth eat and worship. Before him shall bow all who go down to the dust, even the one who could not keep himself alive. Posterity shall serve him. It shall be told of the Lord to the coming generation. They shall come and proclaim his righteousness to a people yet unborn, that he has done it. My friends, God was, is, and always will be sovereign over all. God is in full control of the past, the present, and the future. No evil can thwart his goodness. No detail escapes his notice, and no power on earth can sway his hand. He is unchangeable, incorruptible, and unstoppable. His plan is wise, his knowledge is limitless, and his love is perfect. Whoever you are, whatever you're going through right now, know this. He is there with you. He sees you, and he loves you. Put your trust in him.